You want to do the intro?
Well, I don't know if a traditional intro is actually needed.
I agree.
It's a sad day in many ways, but it's also a happy day. Do you want me to explain?
You can go right in.
Well, I'm sad.
Yeah.
Today was the day that the greatest Call of Duty player of all time retired from the game. And we thought we had one more year.
Yeah.
Thought we had another 365 days, maybe a little less. But Scump called it quits early. I mean, it's been viewed over how many times on?
I said just the tweet from his account has 20 million views.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, he's got to be trending globally. But the reason why I said I'm happy is because Seth's happy now. I mean, clearly with all the roster mania that's been happening and all the speculation that's been going on over at the OpTic camp, we thought Pred was going to come over from Seattle Surge.
Yep.
Then that fell through after about a week. Dashy got on stream, started talking about all the problems, airing out all the issues that were going on along with him and Rambo, the head coach. And then they finally lock in Hook.
Yep.
And it seemed like everything was fine. They win 3-2 over Boston Breach in their first match. And not 24, 48, 72 hours later, Scump comes out with a 5.5-minute video on Twitter saying goodbye and announcing his retirement a full season early than it was originally slated. So just a bombshell for the Call of Duty community and really gaming more broadly.
Yeah, man. I think, you've known Seth for longer than almost anybody in this. And with how long he has been going at it, I thought the conversations of, when are you kind of hanging it up? When are you going to potentially go more content? I've had those conversations with him drunk on a Sunday night after a rough event for 5 years.
Yeah.
And so to now have it finally happen, I thought potentially this year, prior to the year could have been it. But to see it happen now, I think you made a great point. It's like, it's very bittersweet because he's the face of it all for the league. But then he's also a great friend. He's, in my opinion, the GOAT just across the whole Call of Duty universe for what he's achieved in-game, on content, everything. It's just crazy to see. But I'm happy for him because he's going to get to go from Scump to Seth much more. Yeah. And it makes a world of difference.
Yeah, there's so much unpack here because when you look at it from the outside, from our perspective, or at least from mine, if I'm being very critical, it is a very bizarre time for him to step into content full time because this is probably the first iteration of the Call of Duty life cycle in the last 3 years since the release of Warzone 1, where Call of Duty viewership is at probably the lowest it's been in quite some time. There's some exceptions to the rule. People are still performing pretty well on shorts. And TikTok and Instagram with the right formats. I think at least the only thing that comes to mind for me, the things that have gone viral are the proximity chat clips. At the beginning in the first month of Warzone 2, there was a lot of tuning and weapon loadouts that were making their waves around the community. But other than that, the entire conversation on social has primarily been around the fact that Warzone 2 is dropping massively from a player count perspective every single day. And a lot of full-time Call of Duty creators are tweeting as if it's the apocalypse, which, I understand. When your entire world and your entire, living and income is built around the success of the game that you're playing, it's probably a very scary thought to have, 40, 50, 60% less viewership than you did in the heydays of Warzone 1. But we could talk about that in a little bit. So now where we're at. No, so I don't want it to make it seem as if, Scump made a bad decision deciding to go full-time content again. I'm sure he's going to take a beat, regain, gather himself, and come out with some fresh legs and a newfound motivation. But honestly, got to tip the cap to Scump more than anybody because if I were in his shoes and had the level of raw talent that he has, I probably would have competed longer, right? But at the time, this isn't about me, but Scump could have very well made the same decision I did back in the day in Advanced Warfare and took his leave. And the reason why I did was for greener pastures, a less stressful day-to-day, make more money, and give myself the best opportunity I had to make a full-time career in gaming for the rest of my life. And Scump decided to continue to compete. Clearly, the right decision. But over the last couple of years, the CDL and the practice and the day-to-day schedule has changed so much.
It's
and
insane.
Everybody's been so guarded about streaming scrims. You know, you don't have the online tournaments that we had back in the day because we had league matches every single week. Then you had the 2Ks and 5Ks on the weekend. And then you had the major tournaments. And leading up to that, there was so much hype. The only time that you would get off stream is for like a week-long boot camp. But other than that, it was, you know, business as usual. But I mean, if you look at Scump's channel over the last few years, I mean, absolutely no uploads except for maybe a couple weeks where he has a spurt of motivation. Maybe the game just came out. He has some extra time before scrims really start getting into full swing.
Yep.
But had to sacrifice a lot of short-term value and income over these years to continue to compete. And obviously contracts have gone up. He's probably made more money from OpTic than we obviously did in the past. But I just got to tip the cap to him to have not only the ability to persevere on, but I'm sure a lot of people can't imagine, truly can't imagine, because I still struggle with it, or struggled a lot with it back in the day. Is like, man, am I shooting myself in the foot right now? Am I burning so much cash in front of me by not doing the things that I should be doing to hopefully make more money or have more staying power in the long run?
Yeah.
There's just an entire layer, like an onion of layers that you need to peel back to really appreciate the level of perseverance that Scump has had and conviction that he's had in himself and his teammates and the organization of OpTic and just the success of Call of Duty as a whole to continue to compete.
Yeah. I think it's a real testament, too, to how much he loves competing. That, I mean, you got to remember, at this point, the OpTic dynasty, they won in 2017. Like, when I called that final moment, and it was the best moment of my whole casting career that I'll never forget, was they are the greatest roster in Call of Duty history. That was 2017. And there's been a lot of ups and downs for them since then.
Yeah.
It has not been easy for Seth or OpTic as a whole, you know, the league changing and everything like that. So to think that he not only had all that success, but still had these rocky years and was still so adamant about continuing to compete when he had those opportunities shows how much he loves competing. And it also shows that if anyone knows it's time to be done for him, he's like, all right, he's that scale is finally tipped, which is crazy to think.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, going back to the layers that we were talking about too, it's bizarre that I've never been able to sit back and put myself in his shoes because I've never really needed to. I know he's going to be good financially no matter what.
Yeah.
He's been around for a long time, but even the pressure, not from a financial perspective, but the green wall, the entire OpTic fan base, the entire Call of Duty community as a whole, for them, when they don't win, it feels like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. I mean, you got people tweeting you all day about what you should have done, what players you should drop, if you should pack it up yourself, if your lack of commitment is causing the team to lose pace and lose opportunities to win. I mean, that's another perspective that I just really not have taken the time to think about. It's such a bizarre concept for a lot of people at home to probably understand because it might sound like first world problems. I mean, when you think about an NBA player, right? Somebody's trashing Kevin Durant for going to the Warriors and then going to the Brooklyn Nets, not winning. Yeah, this guy can turn off his phone and really not give a fuck. I mean, this man has hundreds of millions of dollars in his career earnings that will subsidize or dilute any feeling of the pressures of the NBA community. And maybe that's me marginalizing what they have to do and deal with as players and as celebrities or personalities. But for esports athletes, that's another component that I just don't think people at home would understand.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing everything you can, just clawing your way to try to provide for yourself and your family, but you're also dealing with criticism in a way that you've never had to deal with, and 99% of the people in the world will never have to deal with. It's something that cannot be ignored, or at least I'm glad that we got to talk about it, because I can't imagine for Scump, when you have the entire franchise and league riding on your back, when you're not winning, he must feel like a lonely, lonely, lonely man. Dude. And thankfully won't have to go through that anymore.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I know you're speaking a lot to putting yourself in his shoes and maybe taking that step back and thinking about it, but I mean, that was also you with, you were that with OpTic as well back in the day. You were right there in those shoes. I mean, you had probably the longest career alongside Seth in regards to like as being teammates or up there with maybe what Formal possibly could have beat. Who, do you think anyone could have beaten you out in length?
I think Formal, Crimsix, and Karma
Like the
ended
actual-
up playing in more events together with him than I did. But I think I'm number 4 on that list. Yeah, I think we played like 28 events together.
I mean, dude, that's insane to think. I remember going into casting and being like, dude, I can't believe I'm about to do my first OpTic match with Scump and Nadeshot. Like, you guys were always a duo. Is there any memory of you competing with Seth that is like a favorite memory you guys have together, or a favorite moment that you think like, yo, that was some duo shit right there?
There are countless moments that I can really
Or
that
maybe
come to
ones
mind.
that can be shared.
Oh, I know we can share a lot of them. I think that's the cool thing about the years that have gone by between myself and OpTic and the 60/50 house. Is it seems so long ago. Like, I don't have any issue sharing the things that went on in that house. But I think from a competitive level, the clip of Nuzlo 1v2ing us on Sovereign Go Search and Destroy when we needed 1 round, and it was a round that we should not have lost. Him and I, whenever we get drunk, end up talking about it, and it's always the other one's fault. But the fact that we ended up winning the next round and finally winning X Games, I think that's something that I'll always hold on to and cherish quite a bit, because we weren't ever supposed to win a tournament that year. I mean, prior to X Games, I talk about it a lot. We were getting absolutely smoked in scrims, like dominated. And I thought we were going to go into that event, get dead last out of an 8-team invitational event.
Oh, shit.
And us to finally win an event of which I thought was the highest caliber. Like, of course, you know, you have a lot of players that go back and maybe they don't anymore. And I don't really even care at this point, but used to say, oh, we weren't playing for any money, so nobody really cared. I always call cap on that. I'm like, this is the first times Call of Duty has been at the X Games. We all grew up watching it with Tony Hawk pull off that 900. You're telling me that you show up to an event at the Austin Speedway next to some of the best athletes in the world and you're not trying to win? Get the fuck out of here. So for us to finally win a big tournament like that, because we had never won like a Major League Gaming open event up until Advanced Warfare, and even then I'm not sure if there was like a traditional open event besides the UMG that we won together, but that one's always going to be special just because of the prestige of the tournament. And then it also set the pace for the rest of the year. I mean, we went to MLG Anaheim right after. We should have won that event. We got second place right after the first place finish, so we were close. And honestly, I think me spawning up back steps on Octane Dom and then taking 2 steps forward and dying, we got put into a nasty spawn trap versus Aches and all those guys, and I lost us that tournament. I still remember the fucking moment to this day. But then we got third place at Champs right after that, and we were in a position to win all 3 tournaments. So that was just something that we'll always sit back and cherish, because I think a lot of times around that era, people were always still, should you have dropped Rambo, like get Nadeshot off the team, yada yada yada. So it's special for me because we got to prove that, you know, they could win with me on the roster. So that one's a little bit more selfish. And then it's a long career together.
I mean, you guys definitely did. I'm going to ask you a few questions here because you have such a unique perspective that I just want to hear it because it's fun to hear. For you, what was it like when Seth's on your team? And you joke about it a lot in your career with the success you guys had, where it was like, yeah, you know, oh yeah, I know my chips were with Scump, you know, the GOAT, right? Like, what was it like when you were a very, very good player, but I think everyone would agree Seth is just on a level that few people ever. What was it like when Seth was the one in your game and you're like, oh, I got Scump to rely on, and he does something that you're like, bro, what the fuck did I do? And he gets the 3-piece, he does this, and like, was your confidence just always there in him?
Well, I think you described it pretty well. I mean, that was sort of the magic about having Scump on your team. You know, I know there's a lot of controversy right now about Dashy and Rambo, and I think he's back on the team now, which we got to talk about that in itself. But we're going to stay on the topic of the GOAT for now. But Dashy had brought up the fact that they had only done mini-map reviews. And I have a perspective on that, which might differ from the rest of the community, because the mini-map, I mean, 70% of the time when you're on the server at a tournament, you're looking at the mini-map. Maybe the percentages are a little different, higher or lower, but Scump is just a man that when you're running on, I'll never forget it. What was that Black Ops 2 map? Yemen.
Yeah.
Yemen. I mean, you could get some real fucked up spawns. Like if you didn't anchor and hold down a spawn for the next rotation,
Yep.
you're spawning on the opposite side and you're either going uphill or downhill. And even if we got ourselves in a bad position because we got taken out by a score streak or we didn't rotate early enough or we lost a set of kills on rotation, somehow, some way, it didn't matter the title, not even Yemen, not even Black Ops 2. That 3-piece would be popped. He would break a hill by himself, and then your job just got that much easier. And so that was the magic of Scump on your team. And to this day, which is weird about him retiring, is he's probably been the most consistent performer, not even on OpTic, but across the league. I mean, his stats.
Yeah.
Maybe the first major, I haven't looked at those, but for the online league matches, I think it's been like 4, 5, 6 matches they've played. He's been like number one, even when he pulled out the AR in this past one versus Boston Breach. His level of performance just hasn't deterred or deteriorated in any way.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember about Scump. Yeah, the matches just were easier, and you could always rely. Actually, fucking best example to use is the only event that I remember Scump playing like shit at was G2, Gfinity in London. I mean, he was a ghost. He got dominated. We all got shit on that event for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But if Scump wasn't playing at the level of Scump played, which he did universally all the time, which is the most bizarre thing for me to think about, you just were fucked.
Yeah.
And I think that said a lot about, past iterations of rosters in time. But yeah, Scump just was a one-man wrecking crew in a lot of ways and would always be the difference maker on maps. Like think about COD Champs, Black Ops 2, what was the map with all the debris? It was really Aftermath, I think it was. Scump gets that kill on TP round 11, or how many rounds we played to Search and Destroy? Was it 4 back then? Either way, I think we were tied 3-3, or it was 5-5, whatever the round count was up to. And Scump just wins 2 miraculous gunfights and knocks out Complexity at that time. I mean, that's just what he did. It's just what he did. He took over maps and made everybody on that team a better player individually because they had less to worry about.
Dude, it's so cool to hear from you because when I casted, that's what it felt like when you would watch him, and the amount of moments that I think of from Call of Duty casting where I was like, dude, how did he just pull that off? I mean, it was the most fun, obviously, when you get an OpTic match because the crowd's behind it. You mentioned the green wall. There's obviously very much positive, but he feels the negative too when green wall is toxic. For you, how much do you think the crowd with you guys playing up there, like, do you think it really helped push you guys forward when the crowd's fully behind you as a competitor? When Seth's get up there and he gets that 2-piece on a map, and now the energy of the crowd goes and Seth's screaming, and we've all seen the gifs of Seth screaming. Does that really impact you as a player, you think?
Yeah, I think it's hit or miss, honestly.
Yeah.
The one thing that I always hated as a player is when somebody like Scump, whether it was Merc, Big Time, or any teammate, Clay, Formal, Proof, whenever a big moment would happen and they make a big play and the crowd is going nuts, but you're in the last 2 minutes of a game, a lot of times it could get the players on your team to really make decisions they normally wouldn't make if they weren't in such a big moment. The comms start getting quicker.
Yeah.
You start overextending. You start making mistakes that you shouldn't be making. And for me, I was always one to tell everybody to settle down and stay within ourselves until that final point is clinched and we win, because it would just get everybody up in arms. But some players need that, and that was a hard thing for me to understand back in the day. A lot of players. A lot of things in this life are all built around confidence. Yep. And if you feel like you're the fucking man and you're shooting like you're the fucking man, in some ways, it almost like the world and the map and the game is molding around you, and you're in the Matrix just going full-blown Neo, Keanu Reeves. So I definitely love the crowd in some ways. When you would win, that was when it was the most gratifying.
Yeah.
I feel bad if players have been on the other end where they've won and don't really have the fan support behind them. I think that's why COD Champs this past year in Vanguard and LA Thieves was so special, because for the first time, I think ever in LA Thieves or 100 Thieves Call of Duty history, the crowd was loud for us when we won.
No, for sure.
Not take credit away from any venues that our team has played at or won at, but the crowd, when they get into it, it's just a different environment. And that's at least something, whether it's good or bad, it's something you remember as a player. And thankfully, back in the day when we were on OpTic together, the crowd was always with us. So we never had to feel that adversity against us. And I feel blessed to have experienced that. But it's definitely not fun as an owner of a team on the other end when you're up against OpTic. It's like you're fighting for... The players are fighting for their careers. The organization is fighting for attention and growth and partnerships and all the things that will break or make your business. And when you end up winning and or you end up beating OpTic and everybody is just shitting on the players that just defeated this incredible team.
Yeah,
it does cause a little bit of resentment, I would say. But that's just me being completely transparent and honest.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get it. We now expect Seth to go full time with content. He has, I think, one of the only few, maybe 10 million view Call of Duty pub videos, Sweat Bannon, where he goes like 88-0.
Yeah.
Black Ops 2. Are we going to get some Nadeshot and Scump content? Like, what are you thinking? Are you about to be texting Seth, or are we going back to the old ways where it's who's online first?
Oh, brother. You know what?
You got 5 a.m. PST.
Yeah, I picked a bad time to start streaming all of a sudden again. This motherfucker said, he's back from the grave, bro. He's back from the grave. Yeah, oh, you thought, motherfucker, top 5 in December? We'll see you in top 15 in January.
Here you are, both of you engaged, both of you homeowners, both of you got dogs, families. Like, any advice to Sethy now that he's no longer competing from Father Nadeshot?
Oh, man. Well, there's no immediate advice just because when he retired compared to when I retired, our lives are completely different. I feel like he's got a great foundation. He's not going anywhere from OpTic. It's not going to be him on his own trying to navigate his career and his personal relationships. I mean, he's got so much insulation, a woman that loves him, a family that's close, with OpTic, and even his mom, who's always been supporting him, and his brother. So I think for him, my honest advice would just be to take a beat. I'm sure he's probably more motivated than ever to get back and, harness some of this momentum with everybody talking about his retirement. His first stream back will be pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
But I would just take a couple weeks to sit back and relax. And whenever that itch is ready to be scratched, to go, full force. I think you probably can speak to it better than anybody. But like the YouTube and social media approach, like the meta around when he was full-time YouTube compared to where it's at now is so different. It's so, the contrast between the two couldn't be further apart. I mean, just this week, I scheduled a meeting with you and your two incredible editors with Kevy and Swappa just to pick your guys' brains about YouTube Shorts. I mean, they just added AdSense back, or not back, they added AdSense for Shorts monetization.
Yep.
A lot of creators that made Shorts accounts 6 months, 8 months ago are now just uploading Shorts full-time to their main channels. So, what's a good thing for Scump is I think the workload of it will actually be a little easier if he approaches it the right way. I think creating for short form is actually a lot less time intensive than, full-scale 10-minute long YouTube videos. But there's a dynamic between the two that I'm sure you could talk about. But he should take his time, enjoy his time off, and then get back in the mix when he's ready to go collect these checks again. And, that meta has just changed. So I feel like there's going to be a little adaptation that he has to make.
That's my biggest thing, I would say, is like take the time, enjoy it. Now I just want to have like some little Miami Vices, little froze drinks at the pool, maybe in PV this summer. We take a trip or something, get a house for a weekend, and just have a good little vacation.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun. I told him we haven't like solidified the bachelor party. Nobody's even started planning, but
yeah,
I told him that he needs to start taking some golf lessons because we're gonna be doing a bit of golfing. But you don't golf either, so we'll have a way to balance out the fun for everybody.
Hey, you get me in a scramble though, and I'll be. That's fine.
Yeah, a scramble would be fun. We'll figure that out. I would just lose
60 balls.
Yeah, I'm curious, man. I really hope that they can revamp some of this shit on Warzone too. I mean, I just put out a tweet about it because there really is. Everybody keeps saying that we're just a really good update away from a great game, and I really do believe that. But I'm curious to see how the next couple months play out with Warzone 2 and what Scump's going to do. I mean, he'll be the king of watch parties if he wants to do that for events.
Yep.
I mean, he's just going to be a beacon for Call of Duty entertainment for probably years to come. And that's the great thing about the franchise. You know, I always bring up, like, Justine. She could take 9 months off out of the year and be just fine. Because when September rolls around and all these Apple updates and conferences and new products come out, I mean, there's 3 months in Q4 where she just cashing out.
Yeah.
And Scump, you know, Call of Duty has had such staying power for all these years. I don't think he'll have any issue. What I want to do is get Scump on, if you know, October and November without the Call of Duty release. I want to get him on Valorant because, you know, we've said it before, but people don't realize Scump's just a gamer.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that motherfucker. I saw him pick up Counter-Strike for maybe like a couple days, and I was like, yo, this Salamander man is pissing me the fuck off because he'll be really good at Valorant, but I'm gonna hold it over his head that I'm better than him right now.
Man, to think of just the whole world is his oyster now, that he doesn't have to scrim and stress and do that every single day. It's going to be fun to watch that break down. But I know we wanted to mention a little bit of, well, now OpTic announced their roster. They've got Hook, Illy, Shotzi, Dashy. I don't know why I was forgetting Dashy for a second. I mean, it's going to be weird not seeing Seth, obviously. Seeing the graphic was already weird, but I still feel like if they can figure it out, it's still an incredibly strong team.
Yeah, I'm more curious more than anything to see what the dynamic will be like between Rambo and Dashy. I just feel like some things that were said sort of cross that line of where you can hold resentment or never even want to talk or work together again. I think the beautiful thing is Rambo has been around the block for a long time. He's had to deal with teammates as a player and now as a coach. With situations maybe not as similar to this, but with some parallels between the two. And he's an adult, and hopefully he can work past this. I don't know if maybe if they're thinking about making changes to what Rambo's role might be or what capacity. That would just be me guessing how they're gonna, you know, mediate some of the things that have you know, unraveled on social media over the last 2 weeks, but. It's a good team. I mean, Dashy is probably pound for pound a better AR than Scump would be. If I had to guess, I think Scump could play any role. I really do believe that the community is so far down this narrative, like Call of Duty is basketball. I mean, LeBron can play as a fucking center. Yeah. You know, and Call of Duty, I will tell you, is not nearly as athletic in terms of what you need to be capable of. And not as complex in the roles that you can play. Scump could have been, you know, top 5 AR. Like, all these players, if you know how to play the map, you know how to play the game, it's really not all that different for the ones that are really talented. But I think the biggest question mark will be Hook and how he fits in. I know that there's been some personal issues from how he is as a teammate off the game that I've heard, and I've heard former players talk about, people have talked about publicly, but he seemed like he was fitting into the mold pretty quickly in that first match versus Boston Breach. And then Illy, Shotzi, and Dashy, I mean, that team on paper, depending on what year you're looking at and how they're performing, all of them in the last 3 years have been in the conversation of top 5 players at one point in a season. So the talent is certainly there, but it's can they make it work? Because that's been the biggest issue with all these iterations of what teams Dashy's been on. I mean, what? How many years? They won 2 championships. So sometimes it's really not even about how talented the player is. It's like, do they make those small decisions that add up to winning a tournament? And that's why I don't think, you know, people give Crimsix his flowers, because maybe at the tail end of his career wasn't performing as well as he should have, but you can't deny the guy has won over 30 or 40 tournaments. He might not have the best stats, but it's the small decisions like holding down an anchor or, you know, the small decisions that really add up to you winning. So,
and a Call of Duty map, those amplify fast. You're making a lot of those small decisions.
Especially now with like all squad spawns. And they just reworked the spawns like a couple weeks ago. Who knows where it'll end up shaking out when the season 2 update comes, because maybe they
100%.
even, temper with the sliders even more.
Yep.
But I just don't know who's going to be the leader on that team. I mean, Scump was never a vocal leader, but he was the glue in a lot of ways. Like, Scump was always just like a founding father of an OpTic roster. So there was some consistency there. And I think he became a better teammate as the years went on. Certainly got better at Search and Destroy. I was pissed because he got pretty good at S&D after I said goodbye. And we would have had some events that maybe would have went another direction. But no. I mean, if anything. But I can't figure out that roster because I feel like they should have been better than they were with Scump on the team. And with Hook, I mean, right now I think Scump's the better player.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I have no idea what to expect.
I mean, I think it's really crazy that in the middle of Seth's retirement video, that 5.5 minutes, if you watched it, there's the moment where he looks directly to the camera and he knows it's going to be seen by millions and millions, and he looks and basically addresses Dashy directly because he wasn't in the room for that moment, and says some of the lines of like, "Look, man, I'm falling so you can rise up." And if I'm in Dashy's shoes, I know it's tough, and you've just come through a really emotional couple weeks, but like, you kind of just got to look at that. I feel like and look internally, and I already see the comments and talk online like, he's about to come back with a vengeance. Here we go, because you're seeing this guy in his final moment be like, look, man, like this is for me. This is that there's been talk of, is Dash even going to play in the league again this year? Is he going to have the rest of this season off? Is he going to have to grind through challengers? And if there's ever a moment where it looks like a life, what are they called?
Light at the end of the tunnel?
No, where someone throws you a life
Flare?
raft or something,
Oh.
and they grab onto it. I don't know what that's called. I don't do much outside stuff. But it's basically Seth throwing him a bone right here and being like, look, man, rise up. Like, forget everything that's happened.
This motherfucker Seth's been watching too much Harry Potter. Like,
I know.
Phoenix from the ashes.
He basically says that shit. In the middle of it, he's like crying his ass off. And then right there, he's just like, Bruce, if you can hear me.
Well,
and so it's like, damn, talk about pressure, bro. I'd be shitting myself.
Here's what I think will happen. I think they're going to go through a pretty aggressive honeymoon phase. They're either going to come out frying or they're going to shit the bed. I would actually rather them be shitty first because they'll find a way to work through and hopefully get better together.
Yeah.
But honeymoon phase can give you some really blind confidence. And the good thing about Rambo is I don't think he'll allow a team to be on, cloud nine, firing from all cylinders, win a couple league matches, maybe have a really good performance at the major. But sometimes that honeymoon phase wears off and you just can't fix the root of the problems that you might have and you can't really pinpoint it. But they got capable hands, they got capable eyes, and I think that they're going to come out swinging, if I had to guess. And then after that, maybe might plateau a little bit. But if they all stick together and stick to the system of getting better and being motivated to get better every day, that team's going to be dangerous no matter how you cut it.
Yeah.
But I just don't know what the chemistry is going to be like. For the players, I know it'll be fine. But if I'm just speaking from outside perspective, they got to have a solution for what happened between Ray and Dashy.
All eyes are still on him. We'll see. We'll see what they can do. I'm interested. I think even though this is such a big moment, the Greenwall fans are already looking at the next roster and still care so much about that team, right? And I think that's the big question. I think that's still going to be the big ticket team for people to watch. I'm excited to see if Seth now potentially gives, I'm trying to imagine Seth as given more of a coaching type role, or do they bring in Seth, break glass in case of emergency? Seth, help us. I don't think so. I don't think Seth
like Gronk and Tom Brady.
Yeah,
like, hey, motherfucker, we're not finished. you need to get back on the field.
Get your ass back out here.
No, I don't think Scump's going to be doing any coaching. He'll be there for like moral support. I guarantee that. And I think he'll actually have fun now from a competitive standpoint, because there's no room that man can't walk into and tell somebody, hey, this is what you should be doing, or helping them get ready for a really important match, or maybe down the line when they get to COD Champs, he'll be like a consistent voice to get everybody pretty motivated and excited. The players, too, are going to have like a chip on their shoulder to make, we talked about the sacrifice for, Dashy to rise up while Seth steps down, but I think Shotzi and Illy and Dashy and Hook. I mean, I don't think Hook's like a really big personality in the league, but you know, everybody's been asking on social, like, who's up next? Like, who's gonna step into his shoes? And I feel like they've groomed Shotzi really well. He's got a good head on his shoulders, really charismatic kid.
Yep.
That is not afraid to stream. He's got a golden opportunity to really deliver for the green wall. And I'm curious now how a year from today, what that pressure really mounted to, right? Because everybody in the green wall is looking at him to step up, deliver not only competitively but for content as well.
Yeah.
He's really, I don't know, it feels like the torch is being passed down in a lot of ways.
I mean, you just saying that on the process this week where they were discussing the whole Pred thing, Hector literally said on camera, like, I mean, I get it. If I got an offer for Shotzi, I'd tell him there's no amount of money to get Shotzi off of our organization. Yeah. So he is that role now for them. And hell, he's done well for himself so far in his career. So.
So
we'll see.
Looking on to next year, though, that's the weird dynamic of this right now because Pred, I know for a fact his contract's up at the end of this year. So yeah. If I'm Hook, Dashy, or Illy, I'm playing for my fucking life right now. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. Every single event, every single map that they play from here on out is a tryout for next year's team. Yeah. Because there's going to be a lot of free agents. Everybody's going to be looking to get crowned by OpTic and brought into that family. There's no other place, I would imagine, hopefully besides, you know, if you can't go to OpTic, 100 LA Thieves, you want to be here eventually if you can't get on that roster. And I'm okay with it being like that. OpTic's been around a lot longer. Yeah. So it's weird for me to be talking about. I had to add that in. But that roster next year, any potential around Shotzi and Pred as the core, and then building off of that, it's a fucking dangerous proposition for every other team in the league. And they'll really have to pick and choose whoever they'd like to bring over to that roster. So any player in the league, like if this is a good time right now to have 1 year left on that contract, because if I'm a player right now, I'm fighting for my fucking life to claw my way onto that team. Seriously.
Damn.
So if anybody's going to take advice, I don't even mean to sound like I'm preaching, but if I'm Dashy, Illy, and Hook, I don't think they need any other motivation than they have now. Yeah. But if you want to really think about long term, you better go, fuck, I might even play a little selfish, dude. I think about that all the time, bro. Like, I wish I would have maybe played a little selfishly. It's like, if you go back and look at any VOD, my arrow is moving forward for better or worse. You know, I'm trying to get to that fucking flag. Yeah. I'm trying to get onto that hard point. I'm trying to break this spawn. And in a lot of ways, I feel like it hurt me as a player, but there's just always that urgency. But if I'm fucking Dashy right now, I'm playing like Celium.
Oh,
you won't see me near that motherfucker. I am staying alive for 3 minutes going on these kill streaks. Well, no. I was just joking around because there's this one map from, I think, the major where Celium on Hydroelectric, I cannot get over it. And I don't know how to play this game, so could be absolutely wrong. This man was alive for like 2.5 minutes. I don't know if he was setting up for the next hill or what.
Or the rest of them
like,
would just
hey,
kill
brother,
everybody.
you'd be better off dying and spawning next to your team than staying alive right now. But there's no doubt how good Celium is. Like, I don't even mean that as shade. I have no reason to apologize. I genuinely just think Celium is filthy. But these players gotta go off this year to see what happens.
People's spots are going to get taken, and honestly, there's one big spot that's going to be taken. Do you think Hector told Fwiz he's off Umu now that Seth's... I mean, Fwiz seems like the natural person to get dropped because he's ass.
Man.
And you know Seth is going to be taking that spot in Umu.
There's nothing worse than the death of game battles. I don't even know if Umu plays together anymore, dude. It's the search and destroy community just got dismantled over the years. And for the sake of a S&D tournament every 15 minutes, one and done, $20 prize, man. I still believe Activision, whatever.
Dude, it would be so
Shut
fun.
down all the fucking websites. Go back to game battles. You own game battles.
Yeah.
And throw one tournament maybe like every 2 days so people start caring about it. You completely alienated an entire portion of the community.
It makes too much sense, man.
Shut down these fucking websites. And if you work at CMG, UMG, I'm sorry, bro, but All these websites and all these tournaments diluted the whole scene. Nobody gives a fuck anymore. Let's bring the prestige back, man. And you can bring the prize money back, too.
Drunk game battles would be a lot of fun. That's my last thought.
miss
But
game
we're probably
battles,
too
man.
we're probably too competitive anyway.
I miss game battles. Drunk game battles would be a lot of fun.
But then again, I would get blooded, and then and then you'd yell at me, and then you'd get blooded, and then Seth would yell at you, and then Fwiz would go too far, and then it would all turn to shit.
Yeah. The conversation now, thankfully, a lot of people have had respect for Scump, but I'm curious in your mind, because I know how I feel.
Yeah.
Is Scump the greatest Call of Duty player of all time?
I personally think with how long he's done it, everything that he has achieved, for me, I think he's the greatest in just raw skill and what he's been able to accomplish with that, both off the game and on the game for what he's done. To be as dominant as he was, I mean, the amount someone posted that the graphics of him just across the years of just event KDs, and it's just mind blowing. It doesn't matter who pops up, who retires, whatever. It was just like, imagine what it was like. I mean, it's weird to say, but it's like when you have an NBA player who averages like 30 points a game. It's like that's like the equivalent of Seth in this. So like, you just always know he's going to be there. He's always going to do the same thing. And it's like when LeBron drops 7 points, you're like, holy shit, what the fuck must be going wrong? Like when Seth goes negative, it's like hell's freezing over. And not only go negative, but then he's also making the right plays on the map. He's also, doing what's needed to win. So for me, I think of greatest Call of Duty player of all time, I think it is Seth.
I agree with you. I mean, I have bias just because I got to play with him all those years and all those events.
Yeah.
And the players that played against him certainly allowed to have their own opinion. I mean, as somebody who likes data in some cases and others doesn't, you look at players like Scump, you look at players like Crim6 and Karma as the best players just by accomplishment, right? Or, even Clay with 3 majors or 3 world championships. But I just think from a talent perspective, from the teams that Scump played on, many of those with me and other, fluctuations or outside pressures, teams not being right, couldn't get the right player. I think if Scump had the same teammates as some of these players did throughout the years, I think his resume would be just as stacked. It's weird, man, because I'm making an argument against myself, but when inherently I like to make the argument for myself as well, because I don't feel like I want to be the ball and chain or an asterisk on Scump's career. Because you look at the last couple of years, they've had talented rosters and couldn't make it work, but I think there's been like weird changes in Call of Duty with squad spawns and 5v5 and online tournaments, and it's been a weird and volatile, turbulent couple of years, but I truly do believe, like down to my very core, from playing with him and even playing against him a few times, the impact that he has on a map and how hard it is to kill him, I just think Scump is the best and most talented player of all time.
Yeah, and obviously, like, leave your comments down below of where you think. For me, when I also think of like the greatest Call of Duty player ever, I'd think of just all-encompassing. Like, that to me is all-encompassing. There's like maybe the greatest Call of Duty competitor ever, or the greatest Call of Duty personality ever, what they've meant to Call of Duty. Like, I think you're the greatest Call of Duty personality ever for what you've done for the game and for esports and everything, and he'll give me a handy later. But I think you could make an argument, oh, well, then is Crim6 the greatest competitor ever for what he's achieved and how dominant his resume was and who he was. But when I just think of, if you take all the pieces of those things, I just think you add it all together and Scump hits all those categories across the highest mark of anybody.
Yeah, it's hard. It really is hard to narrow down, what metrics you should be using, because although Crim6 can be crazy sometimes, I actually don't think the community gives Crim his flowers anymore enough.
Yeah.
I know personality and things that he's said in the last few years as he's been on the outskirts of his professional career. He's rubbed some people the wrong way. If you do get on the wrong side of the green wall, it almost seems like the entire world flips upside down and now you're public enemy number one.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't talk about Crim6's achievements and the staggering amount of tournament wins that he has and how consistently he did it, I just think this is a call to action from my perspective because people just don't give Crimsix the respect that he deserves from what he's achieved. Same thing goes for Clayster. You know, him and I had our differences, and I always said to people when we'd be talking about Clay, if him and I never competed together, we'd be really good friends. And I consider us to be friends nowadays for sure. But since he's such a polarizing personality, I don't think people comprehend how difficult it is to win 3 world championships in those eras of Call of Duty. I think you got to give Karma, obviously, his respect and admiration. I mean, a lot of people do to this day.
Yeah.
Karma was probably one of the most annoying players for me to play against. He was just always in the right place and always making the right play. And when I go down the list of people, you know, you have Scump, Crim, Karma. You got to put respect on Clay's name. JCap, not a lot of love that gets given his way or gets sent his way. JCap in his prime was just a fucking menace to deal with. Aches, you know, Aches played really, really well. Was hard to fucking beat for a long time, as much as I hate to admit that. So the top 5, top 10, I don't think has been solidified yet because there's still a lot of impact that these newer players are having. You know, you guys got guys like Simp and Abizi and, you know, who else is there that's really had like a huge impact?
I mean, the whole trio of them, Simpabizi and Celium, is already
of course,
on that short list.
Fuck.
Which is just crazy to think. It's going to be cool to see it develop. I think the last question I have, because I know we've already had a great episode, we want to get this out, is will there ever be another Scump?
No.
I don't think it's possible.
No. You just want to have the moment in time with the Call of Duty franchise and the birth of popularity around streaming and the new age and wild, wild west of content creation. What Scump did was a mixture of talent, personality, and timing. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much all of those things matter when it comes to making a career on the internet. You know, sometimes you could put 250 hours into this thing every single month for 5 years and you won't make an impact unless you're creating the right content around the right game at the right time.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the sad reality. So for what Scump is and who he is as a person, like that motherfucker is sneakily funny. Sneaky funny?
Yeah.
Actually not even sneaky. Some of the shit that comes out of Seth's mouth when I'm watching his stream, even now after knowing him for so long, I'm like, this motherfucker's funny, and I hate to admit it.
Yeah.
But he just has phrases and things that he says and how he says it, like the dialect or the pronunciation, and I'm over there cheesing, and there's not many streamers that make me do that. I swear to God.
Oh, dude.
Even
He's
to
so
this
funny.
day. So I think his work ethic and all the things that we just talked about a few seconds ago, there will never be another Scump. And I think people need to appreciate what he was and what his career and the culmination that it led to be, and what he's going to do now in the next chapter. I don't think anything is going to slow down for him. I think content creation full time, it's fucking dangerous out here because that man knows how to entertain, and that's why him and I used to have such a. I swear to on my mother's fucking soul, dude. The reason why I used to get mad back in the day when this motherfucker would get on before me or have more viewers than me, it's because I always had imposter syndrome. To this day, I still do. I'm like, all right, maybe I can crack a couple jokes sometimes. Yeah. But I always knew that Scump was just a more entertainer. He was better than me as a player, more entertaining from my perspective as a personality. And I always was just worried that this motherfucker's taking food off my plate right now, because everybody from my chat's going to see how funny and amazing this guy is. They're going to go watch him. I swear to God. I mean, some weird like levels of resentment and jealousy and just trying to fucking make it back then because none of us had any sense for where the industry was going.
Yeah.
I really wish that me and Scump could have teamed together and lived together and had that moment in our lives where we're at today.
Yeah.
You know, just perspective and maturity and the admiration and for each other. I think it would have been very different. But back then, we were like, we were really good. We were good friends. But when money and success and competitive drive gets in the mix at that age, you're fucking doing anything you can to make it. And so, man, what a fucking whirlwind that the last decade has been. It's fucking weird to think about, dude. I feel like an old man.
Hey, bro.
Just wish we'd go back and do some things over again. You know what I mean?
Hey, that's everyone.
What's the quote from The Office? Sometimes I wish I knew what the good
old
times
days
were.
The good old days when I was living in them.
Yeah.
I mean, hey.
Man, I would.
That sounds like life to everybody, man.
I would do a lot to get back in that house for like one more month. You know what I mean?
One more pump with that fleshlight.
Yeah. Facts. It's in that motherfucker cleaning it out. I said, I gotta throw this thing away. Nobody told me that cleaning up would be so disgusting. You know, when all your morals went out the door, and anything is gonna make you that motor go.
Yeah.
You're on the 16th page of Pornhub with this thing just primed and ready to go.
10 plus. There's
and
nothing
then you're
good.
standing over the sink cleaning it out. You just where did I go wrong?
And you know, I think
I threw that thing out immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, Scump, if you walked into his bedroom to this day, I know we always talk about the air mattresses. You walk into that room, he had an air mattress in the middle with his laptop opened, one blanket, one pillow, and a bottle of Jergens.
My man was nothing to hide.
My man was beating meat.
Good for him, man. Good for him.
Because he was hiding away because him and I were just pissed off at each other all the time. It was awesome.
Oh, well, you know, I think there's no better place to end a great, serious, and heartwarming episode than that. This was super cool, man. And
I really wonder if they made any strides to improve post-game on the fleshlights nowadays.
Oh, we're back to that. Yeah, you know, I've never used one, so maybe let me get on that.
I
mean,
I don't think it's anything that you should shy away. I don't feel anguish or embarrassment for talking about it. Maybe the fact that there's like 700 Thieves employees behind me, but you know, we're all adults. Like, if you work in the porn industry, you could sit here talking about X, Y, and Z, but they have to have figured out a way to make that a better experience, right?
We should have.
Look,
hey, you guys have a chance to sponsor an episode, Fleshlight.
And let me put it this way. If you guys are shaming me or getting a good laugh out of this, hopefully you are. But if you're 22 years old, single, living in a house with all your boys, and I definitely didn't have game back then. I don't need it anymore because I found my one. But, brother, I had nowhere to go. I was locked in my bedroom. Who wouldn't want to know what a fleshlight felt like? Curiosity.
I'm more upset that I never did for 25 years.
There's still time.
There is still time. We really got to move on.
Seth, I love you like a brother. Congratulations on an incredible Congratulations on an incredible career. I mean, I don't even need to say these things. You know how I feel about you, the respect that I have. The Call of Duty community, you guys are on notice, man. You guys are on notice. Think about it. Salaries coming down across the board in esports, across the board. The game support, we don't know what we get every single year. You guys are over here fighting trivial battles around GAs. I know you want the experience to be right, and I get that. It needs to be fair. It needs to be competitive. But Seth leaving, retiring, I don't think he's going to be gone from the space, and I'm not trying to preach. I promise you I'm not trying to sound like an old head tells you what to do. But this is going to be a huge gap and a very big missing piece to the Call of Duty universe as we've known it to this point.
Yeah.
And I think OpTic is prepared to make sure that they keep the door moving in the right direction, that revolving door of success. But for all you players, man, it's your time now. You got to go out there and take what's not given. I'm being dead ass. Start the stream up. 6 hour. You guys do 2 scrim blocks. I think that's around like 6 hours. It's a lot, man. I know those scrims take it out of you, but you got to start up the stream and figure something out. And if you don't want to be a personality, I get that. You have every right to not want to be the personality. But 5 years down the road, don't expect this well to be as filled up and full of life and water and organisms in that water. Something. I don't even know how wells work, if I'm being honest. They just drill a hole all the way down to a water reservoir. They find it in the earth.
Yeah, then they like lower a bucket down, pull it up.
Y'all motherfuckers going to be going down that well like the ring. And trust me, you ain't climbing back up. Let's get to work, man. Got big shoes to fill. Let's make some content. Let's make some money. Let's win some tournaments, obviously.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to do something.
I am not nearly as impactful to give any words of wisdom, so I'm just going to say thanks, Seth. Love you, bro. Cheers. Looking forward to gaming and looking forward to celebrating you next time I see you. So, guys, that was a fun impromptu episode. Matt, thanks for letting me basically interview you because I wanted to hear your perspective, man. And
yeah, I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate the questions. We like to have a balance of both of us talking, but I appreciate giving me the floor and talking about it. There's so much still, too, that I feel like we haven't even uncovered. I got some stories about Scump that'll...
Hey, well, that was when we originally talked about this, I know we've had Seth on twice, but now it only seems right to have him a third time.
It would be pretty
And
fucking amazing to have him
post-show.
on the show again.
Our first podcast with him was 3 years ago, and we titled it "Seth on his potential retirement," and it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, that was at the first concert.
Yeah, he was like our second or fourth episode or something like that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. We told you more CouRage Nadeshot shows this year. We got more coming. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.